Hey playa, now that the majority of you are back in school, I've reached out to a bunch of you guys on Snapchat and Instagram just to see how school was going. And a lot of you reported back the same thing. School sucks and you need help. So today I wanted to share 5 life hacks of things I did when I was in school to make it easier that hopefully you can learn from.
This is the Josh Speaks, you're watching the Josh Speak.
One of the big issues I had with taking notes in class was that I would write down everything that was listed on the board or everything that the teacher said, and chances are I never really went back to look at it. I mean, I skimmed over it from time to time, but I never really looked at all of my notes. Let's assume you take about 1 page of notes for every class, and you have about 6 classes a day. That's about 30 pages of notes per week, 120 pages of notes per month. That's a lot of different material to sift through, and chances are you're not going to look at it all. So the life hack that I would always use was every time I took a page of notes, I would always rewrite it on another piece of paper, but break it down into the important bullet points. It's a whole lot easier to go through a bullet point list of things written in your own words rather than the teacher's words, because it's easier to understand what you mean by something rather than what the teacher wrote. In middle school and high school, I spent a lot of the time just simply copying what the teacher had on the board. But for college, you kind of just have to pick out things that the professor is saying and make your own notes. That's why creating a shorter, more succinct bullet point list is way easier to follow up with and way easier for you to study. Plus, there are multiple studies that show that by rewriting something, it actually helps your brain remember it a little bit more because you're thinking about the words as you write them. And now, instead of dealing with 120 pages of notes, you might have cut that significantly or even in half. So you have much less to study and the stuff you have to study is way more focused. In college, this worked wonders for me, especially in classes like English or philosophy, because it was way easier to condense those notes. When it came to the math and the sciences, that was a little more tricky. With math and science, it may be easier to condense all the different formulas that you need to know on a single page, so you have that key to always reference whenever you have to answer questions or do problems with it. Another main issue I ran into for school was finding the best way to schedule my time. Now look, we've all done this. We've scheduled 2 hours in our night to study, and we tell ourselves we're going to study for those 2 hours. But really, we only study for maybe 15 or 20 minutes of it. Don't be one of those people who pretend like they were studying for 4 or 5 hours. We all know you were playing on your phone. Come on. But here's the thing. My life hack is actually to schedule your day in a way that works best for you and not what you ideally think you should be doing. So what I mean by that is, let's say you get home and you're settled in by around 5 p.m. and you're planning on going to sleep around 10 or 11. What do you do with those 5 or 6 hours? Most people just kind of waste time in between. But if you truly bunker down and schedule your time, you'll be way more effective. So what does a good schedule from 5 to 11 look like? Well, here's an example. Let's say from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. you focus solely on doing homework. Sometimes homework is going to take 2, 3, or even 4 hours to complete. So this is more of a general scale. But let's say you spend that 1 hour solely focusing on homework. Now let's say around the 6 p.m. range, you're getting ready to eat dinner. So you want to take some time, take a break from schoolwork. Spend about 6 to 7 eating dinner, relaxing, playing video games. Now is when you can go on your phone and watch TV. Spend that 1 hour for yourself. And it's about 7 p.m. now, and you have a Spanish test that you need to study for. Well, this can go for tests and homeworks too. People generally study better in small incremental pieces. So set aside 20 minutes to just sit down, read your notes, your condensed notes, your textbook, whatever you need to, and focus on studying. After about 5 minutes, go back and study for another 20 minutes. And then after those 20 minutes, take a 10-minute break. And then guess what? Go back to 20 more minutes of studying. Ideally, what you want to do is schedule your breaks to be 5 minutes, then 10, then 15, then 20. And in between each of those, you're studying for a full 20 minutes. And when you're done with this full sequence, you've now spent close to about an hour and a half studying, which is probably going to be a more effective use of your time than if you were to just sit down in front of a book and try to study for an hour and a half straight. One of the simple tools I used in college to help me better schedule my time was Google Calendar. Just plug in what you want to do every 15 or 20 minutes so it can give you a breakdown and plus You'll get notifications on your phone every 15-20 minutes telling you what to do. And by now, it's close to 9:30, so you can start getting ready for sleep, or you can try to finish up whatever leftover homework or schoolwork you have to take care of right before you go to bed. Trust me on this, scheduling really helps. And it's one of those things that people go, oh yeah, I'll do it. But really, when you buckle down and schedule your time, you are way more effective. Another thing I really took for granted in high school was any kind of tutoring I can get on the subjects that were my weakest. I consider going to tutoring a life hack because, yeah, you can sit in class and learn what you have to, and then just rely on your own ability to study your notes and read the book to try to figure it out. But tutoring is very, very specific to what you need help with. Have you ever been in math class and felt like the subject material was just going straight over your head, like you were completely lost? Well, if you were to just speak to your teacher at the end of class and simply say, hey, I don't really understand this. Is there any way I can get tutoring on this? It would help you tremendously. Whenever a student reaches out to a teacher like that, it does a few different things. One of those things is it lets the teacher be well aware of the fact that you're struggling. And because of that, they'll be a little bit more lenient in how they grade you or how they go about processing your schoolwork. The other thing it does, it allows the teacher to really think, if this student is struggling, maybe there are other students that are struggling too. So they may make their work a little bit more easier, they may explain things a little bit more, or they may simply offer tutoring to the class. I remember in high school when I was taking physics, I was part of a handful of kids that weren't doing the best on our tests. And it wasn't until one of those kids brought it up to the teacher that the teacher said, hey, do you guys need tutoring of some sort? Maybe you guys can come during lunch and I can help explain this a little better. Had that student not spoken up for all of us, I would have kept on struggling with the material and failing my test. But luckily, the teacher did offer some kind of tutoring during lunch, and I was able to better understand the material, and it helped boost my grade tremendously. But that's an ideal case. Not every teacher can offer tutoring, and not every school does. So what do? The next best thing is to go to your parents about it. Talk to your parents about hiring a private tutor to help you with that specific subject. Doing this would probably be the most effective version of the life hack because a tutor will really zero in on the specific things you're struggling with. And since it's one-on-one, it's a lot easier to communicate what you have trouble with and for them to help you better understand it. Hiring a tutor, though, costs money, and not everyone can afford to hire a tutor to work with you. So the next best thing is get different kids in your class to meet together throughout the week whenever you can to form a study group. Here's why study groups are so effective. Everyone learns differently. So when you get a bunch of people together to share the different pieces that their minds remembered, it's easier for you to learn from people that are just like you that remembered a specific piece. You can share what you learned, they can share what they learned, and then you guys can all put together all the different pieces of the puzzle. Instead of initially trying to grasp it all on your own, take what you can from other people. Learn from what their minds have focused on. It'll make things a lot easier for you. The next life hack is really something you just generally should be doing, which is eating breakfast and lunch every day and going to sleep and getting a good amount of sleep. Most of us use the same exact excuse. I just don't have time to eat in the morning. So I'll settle for a banana or a granola bar or something small that I can carry with me that isn't a complete meal, but at least will give me something to eat. I totally understand where you're coming from. However, I don't think it's a good enough excuse. What you could start doing is preparing your breakfast the night before. Cook everything you have to, prepare it, and then just wrap it up, put it in your fridge so that when you wake up in the morning, you can toss it in the microwave or toss it on a frying pan to eat quickly. You're always hearing that breakfast is the most important meal of the day and yada, 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 but it truly is. Think about it. You wake up in the morning, your body's rested, and now you need fuel to carry through the day. Do you really want to be sitting in class? Do you really think you're going to study and learn as effectively with no fuel in your body? Most of us get by and we seem okay, but we're really doing a disservice to ourselves. Having that extra boost of energy from food really helps us perform at the next level. And when it comes to sleeping, everyone may need different hours to perform at their best. I may need 8 hours, that guy may need 10, that girl may need 6. I tend to look at it in a good, better, best type of scenario. For example, if I get only 4 hours of sleep a night, that's good. I mean, I can still function throughout the day, but I'm probably going to crash in the middle of it. If I get 6 hours of sleep, that's much better. I could probably survive for the majority of the day, but by the evening time, I'm going to want to go to sleep a little earlier because I'll just be tired. But I know that if I sleep for a full 8 hours, I'll be fully awake and alert for the entire day, and I won't feel groggy quality at all. Everyone's body works differently, so for some people, their best may be actually less than 8 hours. For some people, it may be more. But either way, try to find what your optimal number is and do your best to get that much sleep every single night. Now, another thing that goes hand in hand with school is pulling all-nighters. Trust me, I've been in that situation before, and here's what I learned. If your goal is to get as much as you can done, then pulling an all-nighter is not the best thing to do. Think about it like this. You just spent the entire day awake, and now you're gonna add more hours onto that. Of course you're gonna feel tired. However, what you could do instead is go to sleep really early, sometime in the evening, and then wake up at a crazy hour, like 3 or 4 in the morning, and start your work then. What's cool about waking up that early is that you now have that energy from sleeping, and no one else is awake, so you can focus on what you need to do. And the final life hack affects all these different areas, because I'm pretty sure the number one thing that most people in school deal with is stress. What really sucks about being stressed out is that sometimes it's just a result of having so many things on your plate to do. I remember when I was in school, there would be days where I'd have so much homework to do, tests to study for, and papers to write. So much that it just felt so overwhelming to the point where I didn't even know where to begin. And being in that position can really stress you out because you feel like you lose control of everything in front of you. So this is what I want you to do when you're in those extreme moments of feeling stressed out. Forget the note-taking or the scheduling or the tutoring for a second. If in that moment you feel so stressed out that you don't know what to do, pull yourself away from any and all distractions. Sometimes we get so pulled into the tasks that we have to do that we forget about our own mental health. And that's perhaps more important than any grade or any test you can get. So when I say avoid all distractions, I mean anything that's causing your mind to constantly keep running and thinking. Ideally, what I would say is don't go on your phone, don't play video games, and don't go watch TV. Instead, opt for something that is purely relaxing, like going for a walk or lying down and just shutting your eyes for a little bit. Often at times, we want to jump from one distraction to the next, but what I'm saying is avoid all distractions entirely. I remember when I was in school, I tried it the other way. Whenever I felt stressed out, I would just go online, and what ended up happening is I got sucked into that world too, and then it was hard for me to go back to studying. But what I've come to learn is that if you allow yourself to disconnect, it's easier to reconnect later on because you'll feel fueled again and energized. School stress is not an easy thing to deal with, but hopefully with all these different life hacks, you can figure out how to make your schedule, your schooling, and your life work for you. What do you think though? What's the one thing about school that's really stressing you out? Leave your comment below and we'll talk about it. I really do want to know how your school year is going. And look, we talk a lot about dating and relationships here, but school is another big element of your life. So when I say be your best self, I mean in all aspects. My goal is to help you get there. As always, guys, love and peace.